So I am going to talk today about Bill C-56, which is the Liberal NDP government's attempt at dealing with the affordability issue, Mr. Speaker. But to talk about the legislation itself, we first have to look at where we are in this country. And, Mr. Speaker, it's not a very pretty picture. If we look at where we are right now, mortgage payments over the last 8 years have virtually doubled in this country from coast to coast to coast. We have a similar issue now with rent. All across the country, if you look at the average rents that are being paid now, that amount has also virtually doubled. This is the track record of this Liberal government that now suddenly seems to be concerned about affordability for Canadians. But Mr. Speaker, it doesn't stop there. The bad news for Canadians doesn't stop there. It used to take 25 years to pay off your mortgage. Now it takes the average Canadian 25 years to save for their mortgage. And think about what the difference of that is. Now, some people might say, well, that's not my problem. This is a young person's problem when they're trying to get into the market. Now, I think it's bad enough if it's a young person's problem, but it's also affecting average Canadians right here, right now. I was recently informed about a person whose mortgage has come up for renewal. And as a result of their mortgage coming from that nice low fixed interest rate, you remember those low interest rates that the Prime Minister said are going to be there for a very, very long time. The interest rates that the Governor of the Bank of Canada said are going to stay low for a very, very long time. Well, based on that, many people went out and took mortgages with this very low interest rate because it was allowed them to have a mortgage payment that they can afford. But now, as mortgage rates have continued to go up, as the Bank of Canada has continued to raise interest rates in order to fight inflation, average Canadians now have to pay the bill as a result of this. And in this particular circumstance, this family has said they can hold on for about 6 months, the mortgage payment, this increased mortgage payment. They can dig into savings, they can further borrow for about 6 months. And then, Mr. Speaker, they are not going to be able to make the mortgage payments on their home. That's the consequences of 8 years of this Liberal government. Inflation is out of control. You go to the grocery store, I hear it all the time in my riding of Dufferin-Caledon. People come up to me in the grocery store and they say to me, I now have to only go to the grocery store to shop bargains. I don't actually have a grocery list because I can only buy what's on sale. That's all that I can afford. After 8 years of this Liberal government, this is what people are saying to me in the grocery store. It is a shocking turnaround for Canadians. They're having trouble paying their mortgages. They're having trouble buying groceries. They're having trouble heating their homes as a result of the carbon tax. All of these things are making life more expensive for Canadians. So there's a simple solution. There's actually two very, very simple solutions that the government could implement right away. Well, number one, they could cut the carbon tax, and we know that would have an immediate impact because, as has been said by Conservatives in the House of Commons over and over and over again, you tax the farmer with the farm produce. As they produce it, they're taxed with the carbon tax. Whether that's drying grain, driving the combines, whatever, they're paying a carbon tax. Then, when that crop is harvested, the truck that comes to pick it up is going to pay the carbon tax. Then when it goes to be processed, they're going to pay a carbon tax. Then when a truck picks it up to take it to the grocery store, it pays a carbon tax. And at the grocery store, the carbon tax is heating the grocery store, therefore they're paying a carbon tax as well. And at the end of the day, Canadians cannot afford to pay for food, and they end up saying, I don't even have a grocery list. I just go to the grocery store and buy whatever's on sale. If you were to have said this to Canadians 8 years ago, they would have said that's not possible. In a country like Canada, how can food, where food is abundant, we feed the world, Madam Speaker, because we have the best farmers in the world who are great stewards of the land. If you were to say 8 years ago, Canadians would only be able to go to the grocery store and shop bargains, that would be an inconceivable thought. But here we are, Madam Speaker, 8 years of this Liberal government, and that's the sad situation that Canadians find themselves in. Very difficult to pay the mortgage, very difficult to buy groceries, very difficult to pay rent, very difficult to actually buy a house. That's their record. So that's the context that we look at when they bring in this bill. And this is not a new problem, Madam Speaker. Conservatives have been talking about this problem for the last number of years. In fact, the Conservative leader many years ago said the inflationary spending caused by this government is going to drive up inflation, which will then drive up interest rates. Now, he's looking more and more like Nostradamus with that prediction. And, Madam Speaker, myself, 18 months ago, I rose to speak about the impact of the carbon tax on food production, and I said this is going to cause a massive increase in the cost of food. And here we are. So the Liberal government can't claim that somehow this is a new problem. They were unaware of the problem. They were well aware. They were well forewarned, and they did absolutely nothing about it. When we look at this particular bill, what's amazing to me is Liberal members will get up in this House during debate, they will get up in this House during question period and talk about how, as a result of putting forward tabling this legislation, there is one developer who has said, well, we're now going to build 5,000 rental units. And they puff out their chests and they say, look at us, look at the amazing things that we've accomplished. Well, Madam Speaker, let's put that into context. According to CMHC, we're going to need to build 3 million more homes between now and 2030 than is planned or scheduled to be built. This plan is we'll build about 2 million homes. We'll have to build 3 million more than that in order to get some affordability back. So, Madam Speaker, I've said this a few times in this chamber. I went to law school because I wasn't good at math, but what I did do before I prepared for this speech is I decided to actually get out my calculator and look at it. So 5,000 units out of the 3 million that we need is 0.0016%. I mean, this is, if I had a child come home with a grade and the teacher put on there not just F, they said, your son got 0.0016% on the test, I got to tell you, I'd not be a proud father. But somehow, these members walk around like they've discovered fire with this plan that they're going to build such a small amount of houses. And it's even worse because, Madam Speaker, to even come up with even some of their plan, they had to take that from the Conservative leader's plan. And then with grocery affordability, again, the best thing they could do would be to cut the carbon tax, which they repeatedly vote against. We know that would bring the most relief. They decided they're going to bring in some Competition Act changes, which they also stole from a Conservative member of Parliament's private member's bill. So when a government is completely out of ideas, affordability has gone off the scale, Canadians are deeply hurting, what does the government, the Brain Trust, and all the political advisors they have, what do they come up with? Well, let's just take what the Conservatives said they were going to do. So, and they've only taken some of it, right? So what we have is a plan that's actually not going to do anything to address the affordability crisis that's going across the country. And there's a real consequence. And I spoke about this in question period. For example, there's Paula in BC, 71, retired. She's now saying, I might have to move out of my house because the landlord's going to sell it. And she's facing a 75% increase in rent as a result of that. That's their record, and they have not provided solutions quickly or ones that are going to address the concerns of Canadians. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.